Welcome to the PK&J show. Not quite as good as peanut butter and jelly, but we're going to try. Today, we're going to talk about carbon-14. This is Pastor Kevin, and I'm Jeremy, hence PK&J. Carbon-14, you might have heard the term before, talking about carbon-14. It's used to date things in the past. We want to talk specifically about dinosaurs today. Those big scary monsters from way back, often we've learned millions and millions of years ago. However, when we read our Bibles, we would be led to believe that the earth is not millions and millions of years old. So that puts the Christian, or anybody, the Christian who believes the Bible, at a bit of a quandary, wondering, well, which one do I believe? Do I believe the science that says millions and millions of years, or do I believe the Bible that would lead me to believe much, much less than that? So we're going to try to deal with that subject and help you understand the simple point that you do not need to find the Bible in contradiction with science. In fact, science is in contradiction with the Bible when it says something opposing to the Bible. So, who are we?
And actually, I'd say science is a friend of the Bible when you get all the science. Because scientists are thinking that dinosaurs are millions and millions of years old, 60 million years old, 60 to 80, because they date the strata of the fossil record and the geological column, and they by using wrong assumptions and wrong science, science so-called, the Bible calls it, they think that's the dating of the dinosaurs, and so they say science contradicts the Bible. But we're going to find out today in our discussion that science is a friend of the Bible. When you get all the scientific facts, science is a friend of the Bible, as we're going to see.
Okay. So then, in other words, when the science says something in opposition to the Bible, we don't have all the science.
We don't have all
the knowledge.
We don't have all the facts. Everything that science has said, that Darwin said that the human cell is about as complicated as a ping pong ball. Well, now we know as we get into microbiology down to the very, very minute details of DNA and the biological machines that are working inside of our cells. We go, wow, he was wrong. He was thinking through his observations, this must be true, that it was just so simple. But when you get more and more knowledge in science, you find out that nothing that we're finding in science contradicts what the Bible record says.
Well, that might be a whole other topic here some other time. So who are we talking to today? Anyone who thinks that science shows evolution or a very old Earth, either way. Because and to define old Earth, some would say that they believe in creation, but believe that God used evolution or some sort of a very long-term situation to create the Earth. Either way, going with millions or billions of years.
And we're simplifying all that down to the dinosaurs. People will ask, well, what about the dinosaurs? You Christians, what about the dinosaurs? And we're going to say, okay, let's talk about the dinosaurs. The evolution teaching and their so-called science says that they're 60 billion years old. 60 million years old. How can that be? And we're going to look at that today.
Yeah, because we often equate dinosaurs with being very, very old,
right?
And equate it with all of that old evolution. It's like the old version of Earth, and then we've evolved from there into what we now know as people.
Dinosaurs prove the Earth has been around for millions of years, and therefore the Bible's wrong. That's what's being taught.
Okay, so we're going to do that today we're going to talk specifically about carbon-14. So this is your department. What is carbon-14?
Carbon-14 is a radioactive isotope of carbon. Carbon normally has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, so carbon-12 is normal, stable carbon. It stays carbon forever. But up in the upper atmosphere, cosmic radiation causes the neutron bombardment of the nitrogen atoms that are in the upper atmosphere and turns nitrogen, the gas, into carbon, into a radioactive form of carbon. Radioactive meaning that it's not stable. It's carbon-14 instead of carbon-12. It has an extra couple neutrons inside the nucleus. And because of that, the nucleus doesn't like those extra neutrons, and it vibrates. And every 5,730 years, if you have two carbon-14 atoms, they're vibrating, and after, on average, 5,732 years later, this carbon-14 gives off a beta particle and turns back into nitrogen. So what radioactive means, it's unstable, and over a period of time it will decay, radioactive decay, into a daughter product, which in this case it decays back to what it originally was, which is a nitrogen gas molecule. Nitrogen gas atom, I should say.
Okay. I'm going to try to simplify that just a little bit. One, you mentioned radioactive. Now, when you say radioactive to me, I'm thinking, you know, sirens, the guys in yellow suits, and the cool little radiation symbol, and stay away, everybody's going to die, nuclear weapon type situation. But you seem to be talking about it as if that's not exactly what we're talking about here in this situation.
Well, I mean, you know, radioactivity is bad. It gives off energy particles. In the case of carbon-14, it's not too bad, because in our inside of our body, we have trillions, 600 trillion. In my, you know, an average 160 pound body, about 30 pounds, 18% of your body is carbon. And so 1/trillionth of that carbon, so 1/trillionth of 30 pounds, so 18% of a 160 pound body is like 30 pounds. 1/trillionth of that 30 pounds is carbon-14, radioactive carbon-14. So inside of my body I have 2,500 disintegrations. Carbon-14 atoms are decaying at a rate of 2,500 per second inside of my body, where the carbon inside of me is turning into nitrogen. Now, if it was emitting a gamma particle, you know, going back to, oh no, radiation, if it were emitting a gamma particle, it'd be radioactive. I'd put a Geiger counter up to you and you'd be able to sense it. But it's a beta particle, low energy beta particle. So the real damage to our body, and it is damaging our bodies, is that the fact that the carbon is turning into nitrogen.
Okay. Okay, so this subject matters to us when we're talking about evolution in old Earth. So where we find carbon-14 in you,
yeah.
Is there anywhere at other places, or you and me, humans?
Yeah,
any other places?
Dinosaurs, every living being, every plant, every human has carbon-14. 1/trillionth of 18% of their body weight is carbon-14, and it's decaying away. So the benefit of carbon-14 dating is that when we're eating in our environment, and the plants we eat, the plants that the cows eat, the meat that we eat of the cows, all of that there's an equilibrium amount of carbon-14 in our environment. And so while we're alive, our equilibrium of the concentration of carbon-14 is staying the same. But as soon as I die and I stop eating, now all those 600 trillion about carbon-14 atoms inside my body are decaying away. And after about 50, 60,000 years, and this is, all scientists agree with this, after 50, 60,000 years, all the carbon-14 that was in my body while I was alive is now gone. So you can sample what percentage of carbon-14 does your gram of dino tissue or whatever, you know, in our case, taking a human body, what percentage of the normal carbon-14 is still in your body, and you can determine how long I've been dead. After you dig me up and you look at the carbon-14 content and bones or whatever else, you'd be able to determine how long I've been dead. That's what carbon-14 radiometric dating does.
That's how it's used.
That's how it's used.
Because you can take that and use the amount of carbon-14 that you find in some organic material, whatever that might be.
Right.
And so once it dies, if I die, when I die, or a plant dies, or a tree dies, or whatever, at that point, couldn't I continue to receive carbon-14 within my body, and then that would mess with that? Or
well, I mean, you could. Carbon-14 in the environment could somehow infiltrate that, tree or whatever that's down in the ground, but not, because see, it's in dirt. Dirt's dead. So if it's buried in the fossil record, or a dinosaur that's been buried by we're going to say the sediments that were laid down during the flood thousands of years ago. There's no life there that is creating carbon-14 to get into that dinosaur. So there is infiltration of carbon-14 is a very unlikely scenario for something that's dead and buried in the fossil record.
So we don't naturally receive.
There is nothing.
Once the body's dead, it doesn't naturally receive carbon-14 anymore.
Right.
Okay. And so the only way would be if somebody were to dig down, find that fossil, lay a dead organic material, person, anything, in there, and then close it back up and leave it there for another 1,000 years to sit there and do that. And that would mess with things. But that's a pretty weird and unlikely scenario. Okay, so we're going to switch over to Nerdy Lab guys and bring you into the science lab here and do a little bit of just showing what the half-life of carbon-14 is and kind of explaining that in a way that just kind of puts it literally out here on the table. So give us a second, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back.
So
we have here, explain to me what we're doing. I'm going to get on, you want some gloves?
No, that's your
I get the dirty job, okay.
Okay, so I know that what we said is complicated. People with science, physics background, radiometric dating background will understand what we said, but we're going to try and simplify it even more. And we're going to say that this bag of charcoal here, which we're going to pour out into this little.
Let's say that this tray is a dinosaur.
Yep.
That we found in the ground, fossilized dinosaur.
Yep.
And this is all the carbon-14 that we might have found inside that dinosaur.
Yeah. And so
is that a right way to think about that?
Yeah. So this is the dino, and this is carbon-14. Now this is way more carbon-14 than would be in a dino.
We're talking at the molecular level here. We're talking
at atomic level.
At atomic level. Okay.
So we're going to show that. Let's say dino dies, and this is the carbon-14 that was in his body, and we're going to show by how do you measure that dinosaur's age by how long it's been dead by using carbon-14. So we know it died with this much carbon-14 because that's the average in our environment. And now we're going to see what happens with a half-life. So 5,730 years later, 1/2 of this carbon-14 is going to go from being carbon, radioactive carbon, to nitrogen, to a gas. It's going to disappear.
Okay, so it just, at that time, 5,730 you said?
5,730 years.
It cuts in half. That much is gone.
1/2 of this carbon is going to go to gas.
So then we can know if we show up and there's half as much of that 30 pounds that's in you or so, that we know that's.
Yeah, we sample a dinosaur bone and we say, hey, 1/2 of the normal amount of carbon-14 in a bone of anything, any living thing, half of it's there. So now we know that dinosaur has been dead for 5,000 years. So what we're going to do,
this is an approximate half-life.
5,730 years later, all of that carbon just turned into nitrogen gas. And to get so now, so now if we find only this much carbon in the dinosaur bone that we sampled for carbon-14, we go, oh, it's been dead for 5,730 years.
Perfect. Easy enough. And we can do that over and over and over again until we get to whatever amount we have left there.
Right.
And if it's not there, if we show up at a fossilized anything, plant or dinosaur, and we don't find carbon-14, what does that tell us?
If we don't find carbon-14, it's gone. Like there's none there. We take a sample of a dinosaur bone or whatever else, and we put it into our detectors looking for the disintegrations that we're going to see off of radioactive carbon-14 that's decaying away. If we see nothing, we know that it is at least 50, 60,000 years old, and we can't ever date it after that because it's gone. So you can't date what's gone after 60,000 years. So
normally then when we find a dinosaur, when a scientist or archaeologist out there finds a dinosaur bone, they probably don't even, with the typical science mindset that's out there and what we're being taught, they likely don't even go to carbon-14.
They never sampled until recently. They never sampled dinosaur bones for carbon-14 because in their mind they were thinking it's a useless test because they know there can't be carbon-14 because carbon-14 is gone in 50, 60,000 years, and we know that dinosaurs are 60 million years old, so why even test?
What's the point? Why put the effort and time into it?
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk here after this other half-life. We'll talk about why did they change? Why did they why did they do carbon-14 testing?
Okay, so I'm going to cut up a couple of half-lives here until we get down to a little bit smaller number.
Okay. So now that dinosaur's been dead now for 2 half-lives, 5,730 years times 2. Okay. So right here, this is what's that huge pile, what's now left after 9, 10 half-lives is this much carbon. So you can see that taking a half of a half of a half of a half, pretty soon you're down to nothing. So at 50, 60,000 years, there's only a couple of atoms left to disintegrate to nitrogen inside of anything that was alive that died. 50, 60,000 years, it's gone. Carbon-14 is gone. You should see none if you sample for it.
Okay. So approximately 10, we were figuring that out while we were cutting it up there, but approximately 10 half-lives, and that's the end of carbon-14.
Right.
And we don't find it anymore. So we mentioned earlier why they don't normally test dinosaur bones or anything like that. Why did they recently start doing that?
Well, it all started with Mary Schweitzer, a famous paleontologist, and she was featured on 60 Minutes because she was looking at some T-Rex bones, and she dissolved the petrifying aspect of the bones and got inside the bone marrow and started realizing, wow, I'm finding soft tissue. How could there be soft tissue inside of a dinosaur bone that's been dead for 60 million years? And so she raised there was quite a stir in the scientific community.
Soft tissue, I mean, you're talking fleshy type material.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously
it's like pulling on blood vessels, and
it's moving, it's pliable.
And it snaps back. Flexible, soft tissue.
That would be shocking.
Yeah. With known science, there's no way that soft tissue can still exist inside of a dinosaur. So they went scrambling.
No way at millions of years.
No way at millions of years, yes.
So all of a sudden it's like, wait a second.
Okay, so then they decided, well, there shouldn't even be soft tissue at 60,000 years. So they decided, well, we're going to prove that something's wrong here by doing a carbon-14 test. Well, will carbon-14 prove that it's at least 60,000 years old? And, so there shouldn't be, they were trying to explain by at least 60,000 years old, that would prove that this is not really soft tissue from the dinosaur.
Okay,
it's
so their
some
motive,
kind of collagen or whatever.
So their motive was they're going to show, look, there's very little carbon-14 left. We're showing it at 50,000 years old, let's say. And therefore, there's no way that this material would still be pliable in there, even at 50,000 years old. So there's something in air here. There's been something that's polluted this dinosaur bone or something along
They were saying it's collagen or whatever else. And so they were saying, we're going to prove that it's old enough that it couldn't be soft tissue, but therefore it's something else.
They wanted to basically debunk their own finding that there was soft tissue there, because to have soft tissue means there's something much younger than millions of years dinosaur situation. So they run the tests and they find out that it is.
They're finding carbon-14 in every single sample of dinosaur tissue, bones that they sample. They went to a dinosaur and they go, okay, we're going to prove it, and they do a carbon-14 test, and they find carbon-14. It's a fluke. Something's wrong with this test. That lab, they go get another sample of another dinosaur bone, and they sample it carbon-14. They're finding carbon-14 in every single sample of dinosaurs, and instead of proving that can't be soft tissue because we know they're at least 60,000 years old, they're proving that all of their 60 million year old dinosaurs are less than 60,000 years. In fact, some of the data is coming back at 20,000 or 10,000 years old. So they're proving that dinosaurs have not been dead by science, by using the science of radiometric dating using the carbon-14 atom. They are proving that dinosaurs haven't been dead that long.
So I wonder if everybody's going to up and change their mind and all of a sudden realize that they should trust the Bible.
No, the people that are stuck on the evolutionary dogma do so because of religious reasons. They can't come to grips. If the Bible's right, then that means that the God of the Bible must be telling the truth, which one of the things the God of the Bible says is that we're sinners in need of a Savior, and that we're going to answer to Him on Judgment Day. And people that religiously want to believe in atheism, that there is no God, that we're here by time and chance, they're not going to change their mind unless they humble themselves and realize that the facts are showing them to be wrong. We didn't evolve. There isn't time and chance that created the diversity of life. We have been miraculously created by an all-knowing, all-powerful God who so loved us, He sent Jesus that we could be saved.
So to wrap this up then, ladies and gentlemen, the children who might be watching, God is a holy, perfect God. He gave us His Word in the Bible. Very clearly tells us lots of things, including leads us to believe that the earth is really only a few thousand years old. We should start with the Bible and move forward from there. Like Pastor Kevin said, the Bible tells us that we are sinners and fallen short of the glory of God, and we do need a Savior. We need somebody to deal with our sin, and that's what Jesus did. That's what God did. God came in the form of a man and paid the price that we all owe. The wages of sin is death, and the only way to be saved is by faith in Jesus Christ and Him alone.
Amen. And for those that want to dig more and say, how can you be saying all this stuff about what they're finding in dinosaurs? Well, it's all documented, peer-reviewed journals in kgov.com website. You can just Google on soft tissue, dinosaur soft tissue, and look for the second hit in Google is going to be kgov.com. And you'll see all the peer-reviewed articles that are by scientists finding carbon-14 in supposedly millions of years old dinosaurs. And they're finding carbon-14 in diamonds that are supposedly billions of years old. So how can that be? The Earth is young. Dinosaurs were walking with man in the not too distant past. And we're going to, the science is, again, a friend of the Bible.
So the kgov.com, I'm assuming that's probably a Christian website, right?
Yes.
So some people, you might be led to think, well, they're going to be slanted towards Christian thoughts and whatnot, but you're saying that the things that they're presenting there are not Christian documents and peer reviews. These are just the peer reviews that are out there.
These are peer-reviewed scientific articles dealing with all the sampling they've done with dinosaurs.
Okay, so do your own research. Look into this further. When you get to the bottom line, you're encouraged here to humble yourself before God and trust what He has said, Him and Him alone.
You won't regret it. The Bible, let God be true and every man a liar. And we're finding out as we get deeper and deeper into true science, we're finding out that we can rest in that. God told us the truth, and we can believe and trust in a God who tells us the truth. God bless you. We hope that this has been helpful to you to understand a very important item. You can believe in the Bible without having to check your brain or be accused of being ignorant of science. Science is a friend of the Bible.
So, Pastor Kevin, this time, why do we do this?
Because lost lives matter. We want you to stop being deceived by the lies of this world so that you can come to a knowledge of the truth.
Amen. God bless you.
Yeah, I stumbled on a little bit of that, but